That's awesome, Max. That's definitely going to be really cool. I can't wait to see it. Except for the whole Jedi code thing. I've installed some CFX, Ron. Will do, Max. Your secret's safe with me. That sounds like a faulty board, Ron. He can post on TCSS. They have a help section there.
Megtooth requires a lot of work on engineering, drilling, smoothing, tapping, setting, imagining, cutting, stripping, twisting, dipping, tin it, pin it, wire it, fire it, lock it, rust, swing it, bash it. Megtooth says sabers.
Greetings, Saber fans. Tonight, we are going to finally finish this puppy. We're going to go ahead and finish the install on this Saber. And you can see all our wires there. It looks like a mess right now. By the end of tonight, hopefully it won't be, and hopefully we'll have this thing installed. So I'm going to show you all some changes I made. So I'm going to share a window here really quick. And what I want to do is show you guys the config file. So the config file on this Saber, that's not it. Let's look in here real quick, which is cool because you guys get to see how my stuff is set up. But at any rate, there's the config. So what I wanted to show you guys really quick is that I added a couple of define lines, define shared power pins. I'm going to talk about that in a second, and the stock gesture ignition, and save state and idle time off. The stock gesture ignition I added, and I'm using SA2CC's buttons when I compile, and then I recompiled it, and also in the last video I forgot to add the balance on the SD card. So I fixed those, but I've also fixed the blade config for the 5 Neopixels and the stock connector. So it's going to be on blade power pin 2 and 3 and 1 actually, which is why I had to add the shared power pins, and we'll explain that if anybody has any questions about that. But basically the stock connector, everything runs off the same negative and positive, the accent pixels and your main blade. So you have shared power pins so you don't lose your accent pistols. So anyway, let's go back to you guys, and stand by one, because I'm going to move the camera and kind of show you all what we're going to be into tonight. So let's go back to the scene. How's the volume? Am I getting feedback or anything like that? Or is everything okay? So here's the saber we're installing again. The LGT Leia saber, which I got from Rebel Sabers. And this is the Proffie board, which we worked on last week to program and write the config for. And we also wrote the SD card. So this thing's ready to go. So tonight what we're going to do is we're going to start setting this board up. And one of the first things we need to do, and I'm going to put you all on scope in a minute. Sweet. Glad the volume's okay. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm using some isopropyl alcohol here, and I'm going to clean off all these pads and get them ready to solder. And a Proffie 1.5 has an extra step because we actually have to put a ground wire in, and we have to bridge FETs 1, 2, and 3 to receive the main negative LED wire. So right now I'm just wiping all our pads down with isopropyl alcohol. So at any rate, we got the pads cleaned off now. Now I'm going to take some 30 gauge PTFE wire, and I'm going to strip some of it. I already got my soldering iron ready to go, and I'm going to strip, trying to get this where y'all can see. Ooh, look out. Camera almost fell. I'm going to strip some of this PTFE wire here. And this is, so basically I'm just making the ground connection, and this wire is too long, but you know, whatever, we got to use it. I'm bringing some flux in the picture. I'm going to dip this sucker in flux. And no, I'm not using the vent, and I'm trying to keep up with you guys. TRA does have a help section on the CFX, but I think you'll have better luck over at TCSS. You know, their guys work. You know, anytime somebody posts a problem with CFX. Good evening, Jared. Good to see everybody who can make it tonight. We're going to be installing a Proffie board, and right now we're setting up the Proffie for install. So on the Proffie board, I don't know if I should go under scope for this or not. Probably not. So on a Proffie board, let me get something to point with. Still got some Q-tip stuff on there. This pad right here is the ground pad, right here. And also this is a ground pad, and this is a ground pad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect a wire from this ground to this battery negative, and then my actual battery negative, which is going to be powering the Proffie, is going to attach in here. This was something on Proffie 1.5 to separate the ground and the negative. I still don't know why Frederick did that. He had his reasons. I don't know what they were. But what we're going to do now is we're going to go under scope. So let me go to Windows Share. And I'm going to go to Windows Share No Peek, so you don't have me in there. And then I'm going to go to the scope. And I'll try to maximize that and maximize that. And let me get this in here. Of course, now the scope's not on, right? Yeah, hang on a second. technical difficulties for some reason. Let's go here. USB microscope. Nope. Nope. There we go. Bada bing, run. So let me get this in focus. Ugh. And we'll try and show you what we're doing here. But I'm going to be soldering that wire through that hole and try to focus on that a little bit better. It's not going to be perfect. This isn't like some high-dollar scope camera, and I got wires all over the place in my way while I'm trying to solder. But I've got my wire actually sticking up through the hole there. I'm going to wipe off that soldering iron tip, and I'm going to come in here. And these Proffie 1.5s were kind of notorious for not wanting to take solder, but there you can see the solder on that 1.5. I'll check the chat in a minute once we're done with this. I think this is the only thing I'm going to do under scope tonight. Everything else I'll do under the big camera, but I wanted to do this under scope. So now what I'm doing is I'm taking this wire and I'm going to run it to that negative pad right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it a little bit long, and then I'm going to strip it. Now, y'all aren't going to be able to see this, so just stand by, but you know how to strip wire. I'm stripping it. I'm going to dip it in some flux, and I'm going to pre-tin this sucker. And I'll bring that onto the camera view so you guys can see me pre-tinning. You can see how pixelated that is, but that's my wire I'm getting ready to pre-tin. And once it's pre-tinned, I'm going to stick it through my battery negative hole. Like that. I'll work that wire in just a second on the other side. And now I want to make sure I'm bringing y'all back into view here of where we're at. We're in this hole right here. You can see the tin wire sticking out through that hole. I'm going to try and put it in the middle of the screen. God, I hate working under the scope. Of course, I didn't set this up so it's not reversed. So now we're going to clean our tip, and we're going to throw the spurs to her here. And it would have helped if I'd have taped the board down. All right. So now we're soldered in there. I'll try and show you that solder from a different angle. There's our solder right there. And we're solid. And the wire's on the back side, and I'm going to kind of route it like this. So it's routed so we can still get our data lines in here, and then it's routed all the way to where we soldered it in there, and we're good. So now what I do is I'll do a continuity test, but I'm going to do this off scope. So I'm going to bring you all back into view here in just a second. Stand by. I'll get rid of all that, and we'll bring you all back in and go back to the scene. Let me get caught up on comments. Jeff Birch, hey Jared, hey Max, Cold Weathers is on. Hope everybody's doing good. What's the word on the dog, Jeff? Yeah, not yet. A bunch of lists. Cole said that's awesome. Yeah, that's going to be awesome. Oh, yeah. Good catch, Cole. The SD card was in. We'll take the SD card out. Good catch. The SD card was in. I should have taken the SD card out. That's what happens when you're live. You make mistakes like that. But, you know, I make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. But there you can see the wire that we just soldered there. Sorry about my focus on that thing. It's autofocus. But now let's get down to business. So that wire's soldered on. Now what we got to do is jump the 3 FETs. So on a Proffie board, this is FET 1, 2, and 3 here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to solder a jumper on this hole to this hole and then this hole to this hole. But I have to be careful not to touch my negative to ground jumper there. So you're going to see how I do that here in a second. But I just take a wire round resistor. Oh yeah, live installs are high risk, low reward. But it is what it is. We're just having fun, man. We're building a saber. But at any rate, I'm going to stick this wire resistor up through that hole. And usually what I'll do is I'll bend it over. And then I'm going to put a little bit of flux on the subject here. A little bit of flux kind of helps make things go better. And then I'm going to bring in my iron and my solder. And here we go. I don't know if y'all are going to be able to see this. I might lower the camera a little bit. But I'm going to solder this puppy in there. She wanted to tape. These Proffie 1.5s are notorious for not wanting to take solder real well. But, you know, once you get them, you get them pretty good. All right, so now I'm going to take that resistor and I'm actually going to cut it. Y'all see my madness here in a second. And I'm going to, now you do have to do this on Proffie 2.2s, but you only have to do it to 2 FETs. Or on a Proffie 1.5, you know, the instructions say to bridge 3 FETs. So now I've got, actually, you know what, that's not going to be long enough. So I'm going to stick this resistor up through there like that. We're going to apply some flux. I'm probably going to lower that camera in a second, y'all, so you can see this a little bit better. Just bear with me. Because I wanted to get, you know, the rest of the stuff going tonight. But I'm going to lower this camera here in just a second so you guys get a better view. Now I'm soldering those 2 resistor tails in. And again, the Proffie 1.5, the pads were notoriously difficult to get solder to adhere to, but it's going to go. Bam, just like that. And then I'm going to clip the extra that's sticking up there. And I'm going to reflow that because it's still there. That's solid. Now, what I do is I then take that resistor tail and I bend it away from that negative joint there to bring it into this last hole here. And I've done this on, you know, I've done another full Proffie 1.5 tutorial video where I did this, but, you know, there's a lot of ways to skin this cat. You can use insulated wire here. Everybody's like, why do you use resistor tails? And I'm like, well, I don't know. It just makes my life easier. But you can see you certainly have a danger of grounding if you ran this straight across. So I curve it around so I don't get any shorts here. But they're separated. And what this is doing is tying FETs 1, 2, and 3 together. And that's because these FETs are going to be powering our main Neopixel blade with a lot of amps. And so we like to have a lot of FETs flowing through there. I'm going to try and lower this camera so you guys can maybe see this last little FET solder in here. Stand by. Let me get the princess out of the way. We don't want her to get hurt. We don't want her to get hurt during the camera lowering process. I'm trying to bring you guys a little closer into the subject at hand. Let's see how that looks. That's a little bit better. You're still far away, but, you know, it is what it is. I did take the SD card out for those of you that saw me soldering the jumper in with the SD card in. All right, so now you clean that tip. And let's come in here. And let's come into the kill here. Bam. Hopefully that's good. Looks pretty good there. Now let's trim up here a little bit. Hey, Chet Osborne. I'm trying to keep up with what Birch is talking about with his son's dog while I'm doing this install. And there we go. So now all my FETs are bridged, and you all know me. Here comes the multimeter in, and we're going to do some testing. So number one, yeah, I got my contacts in here. I got it on continuity mode down here, tone. So you see we got continuity. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring, I'll bring the Proffie board up here so you guys can see what I'm going to do. Number one, we bridged this ground back here with battery negative. And we should be able to test it here too, if I can hold my hand steady. There we go. And it should test there too. So we're good there. Now we're going to test to make sure we got all the FETs. So we're golden there. So all three of the FETs are bridged, and our ground to negative wire is successful. And let's check and make sure we don't have any shorts between battery negative and ground. Oh, that's this is battery negative. So we're good. And let's again check our FETs. Beginning now. So the Proffie board is now ready to install. So this is a Proffie 1.5, Willie J. This is an older Proffie, but I still use up my 1.5s. This is actually original run Frederick TRA Proffie board, and it's pretty awesome. But at any rate, let's bring the saber in. And I'm going to set the Proffie board to the side for right now because we have some work to do on the saber. So I'm going to move this camera around. Oh my God, wires everywhere. It's tough doing these installs on a camera because it's always blocking the way. So I've left some spare wires in here, and let me go back and show, for those of you who don't remember what we were doing. So these two blue wires here in the bottom of the chassis are feeding the speaker. This white wire is my battery negative. So I'm going to pull those out now. So there's my speaker wires, there's my battery negative. Then this triple bundle here, this green, yellow, and white bundle, this is 30 gauge. This feeds both my switches. So you know what that is. Then I have this red wire, which is my battery positive, which this comes from my battery positive contact there. These wires are my Neopixel wires. So I've got these are 22 gauge red and black that are feeding the Neopixel adapter. This purple is data for my main blade, and then brown, which is in the bundle here. Brown is my data for the stock Neopixel connectors because I'm running it style 4. So I've left enough of the spare wire for the Neopixel module because this chassis is actually going to be shoved home. The buttons in this chassis are fixed in the chassis. There they are. We did that on the first live install. There's no need to go back and repeat that. You can watch that first video to get that. So now what I need to do first is to get some of these wires out of the way, is I'm going to merge my positives. So I'm going to tie the Neopixel positive directly to the battery positive, and I'm going to tuck that away, and I'm going to leave a little pigtail to feed positive to the Proffie. And I need to cut a pigtail, and I make my pigtail 26. So I'm going to cut a little 26 gauge pigtail, and we'll use that here in just a second. And this will actually feed my Proffie. And yeah, I cut that way too long, but it is what it is. So the first thing I'm going to do is come in here, and I'm going to, it's always a mess. I should have brought my tape to tape these wires out of the way. But I'm going to strip that one to about there. And we want to make sure we can grab it with that one. So I'm going to strip that one to about there. And we'll get this spare wire out of the way. And let's bring in my needle nose pliers. And I'm going to strip this, which is 22 gauge PTFE. And I want to grab that one, which is 22 gauge PTFE. I may have to tape some of these wires out of the way because this is a mess here. And I'm going to twist both those after I strip them. And then I'm going to strip a little bit off this 26. 26. And that's way too much, but you know, when you're joining wires, I like to try and, of course, damn camera mounts in my way. When you're joining wires, it's okay to strip too much when you're having to join wires like this, because you can always, you know, cut the excess off after you join them. So I'm going to dip that in flux, and I'm going to come in and tin those suckers together. And this is my battery wire, but it's also my pigtail that's going to feed the Proffie juice. And that's a good solder joint there. I'm going to trim it a little bit. Now, I need to, my skills. You're seeing a big mess of wires right here is what you're seeing. There's no skills here. The skill is trying to do this under the camera, which is about impossible. I don't typically like doing installs under the camera, not because I'm nervous about it, but because it just, all the room that I normally use is used up by the camera equipment. All right, so now we need heat shrink. So I'm going to get out some heat shrink. And I don't know what size this is. I just know what size I need on this. And I'm going to cut a pretty good piece of heat shrink here. Let me get my gun warmed up here while we're getting ready to solder. Hopefully I can get that shrink on there. Just always remember to put your heat shrink on before you solder. I might have to cut that heat shrink a little bit shorter because it doesn't want to cram down in there. So I want it to cram down in there as far as I can get it. So I'm holding the wires so I can push the heat shrink on. Now I'm going to pull the heat shrink on and try to cram this wire down in there. Now is where helping hands come in handy. So I'm going to bring in some helping hands, and that's going to be more crap in my way, especially with all these wires. In the beginning, I should have taped these out of the way. All right, Now I'm going to grab my hemostats. Coming in with my hemostats. I'm going to grab that bundle. That's the pigtail and my battery positive. And now let me get some solder close by. And I'm not using the vent fan tonight because it would mess up the audio on the camera. I'm going to bend this down a little bit so I can match it. I'm going to come in for the kill on this joint, hopefully. And you guys will be able to see it. I think that's good. Now, let me get the helping hands out of the way. I think that's the only wire joint we're going to have to do in here. And, yeah, that's good. So I'm going to pop a shrink over it if I can. Oh, yeah. And there our shrink is on. So let me hit that with the heat gun. Now this is a 3D printed chassis, so you don't want to put too much heat near the chassis because it'll start softening up the chassis and melting the chassis. But I'm heat shrinking that joint there. You can see my shaky hands on that heat gun. Everybody's laughing. They're like, look at his hands shaking. There you go. Time for a sweet tea break. Actually, unsweet tea. And I'm not kidding. It's unsweet tea. See, unsweetened. It's good stuff. All right. Probably what I don't need is more caffeine. My hands are already shaking. So what we have here is I've joined the battery positive wire to the Neopixel positive wire, but I've also added a little 26 gauge red wire that's going to pigtail up to our Proffie. So I can shove all that down in there, and that's all ready to go. This is our Neopixel negative feed, which is going to go on the FETs that we joined together. These are our switch wires. I'm going to start taking some of this crap out of the way, because normally what I do is I'll start installing from the back of the Proffie. So the Proffie is going to sit in here like this, and this is just me. I mean, this isn't right or wrong. It's just the way I do it. But the first thing I'll do is install data 1, then data 2, then my speakers, and then these FETs if they have anything on them, but this one's not going to. And then I'm going to put our battery negative, which is this white wire here. And then I'm going to put our black wire onto these FETs that we've joined. And then that positive pigtail wire we just wired is going to come up through this one. And then this is our main switch. And our auxiliary switch is one of these. I have to look up the diagram. But that's what's getting ready to happen. I know it doesn't, Ken, but I'm fat, so I have to drink unsweet tea. I'm not permitted to consume sugar because I am overweight. I have a minor weight issue, and drinking sweet tea would not help with that. So it's actually home brewed. I did put it in a tea bottle, but it's home brewed. All right, so let me get some tape and tape some of these wires out of the way that are bugging the mess out of me. And I use painter's tape because it won't, mar the hilt. And I think what I'm going to do is I don't need that Neopixel negative right away. I will need that brown wire. I don't need any of the switch wires right away. And I do need that Neopixel data. So at least I can get those wires out of the way. And that way they're not flopping all around and it actually looks cleaner. So now, and eventually, ooh, what's that wire doing? What's that? Oh, that's one of my cut wires. I was like, what the hell is that wire in there for? Sorry about that. So I'll eventually clean this up down here in the bottom, the speaker wire and the battery negative, and I'll probably put a small piece of ribbon down here covering this, and also a ribbon so you can tug the battery out. But right now, the first thing I want to do is connect our Neopixel data 1. So what I do is I'll lay the soundboard in here and get kind of an approximate length on that wire for Neopixel data 1, which is going to be about right there. And I'm going to snippy snip. So this wire is going right there. And I'm getting rid of the excess part of that wire. And then I'm going to come in and grab that 30 gauge data wire that feeds our main blade. This is our main blade data. And I'm going to strip it. I'm going to twist it. And I'm going to dip it. And then I'm going to tin it. And of course our brown data wire is in the way now too. So the brown data wire I've got feeding the Neopixels on Stock's connector. And now what we're going to do is I might have to bring in my helping hands to hold the board. Oh, let's see here. I'm trying to keep this all in frame so you guys can see it. I might need to twist that a little bit. I'm going to try and bring all this a little bit closer to y'all so you can see it. And now, how do I do this so I'm not blocking y'all's view? I want to pull this Neopixel data wire down, and it's got to go through data 1. I feel like I've had a problem. I can't find the hole. That's what she said. Oh, there, I've got the hole. I'm going to push that down. Of course, my positive pigtail's all in the way there, isn't it? But I've got the data wire up through the hole, and I'm getting ready to hit that sucker. Clean the tip of the solder in there. Let's come in here for the kill. Too much solder. Too much solder. Let's get the helping hands out of the way because I can't even reach through all that. Oh, I'm going to release my hemostats. And the solder actually took, but I don't like that. And I'm checking to make sure that the wire is all the way through. And we're good there. I just don't like how that joint looks on the board. So I'm going to heat that up again briefly and make sure we got the pad. And that looks better because it looks like a more conical solder there, which is what we want. And I'm going to trim that excess. And then I'm going to reflow that real quick. Bam. Like that. That's much prettier. That's much prettier. First wire is always the hardest. So now, can you see I got too much crap going on here? Now, our data 2, which is going to feed our Neopixel connector V4, which is the stock connector. Our data 2 is going to be about right there on length. So I'm going to cut her about right there. And now I'm going to get the board out of the way. And we're going to strip this sucker, which is 30 gauge PTFE. I used 30 gauge on data this time, and I don't know why. Normally I use 26, and 26 is a little bit easier to deal with. Yeah, everything's in the way. I do need 4 arms, Cole. This is a nightmare with the camera here, trying to solder away from the soundboard. Okay. It'll get easier. The more wires I get on, the easier it becomes. So now I'm going to grab that one with our hemostats. And I'm going to swing her up through data 2. Bada bing. You know, Jeff Birch, he was like, of course, now you don't want to cooperate, right? Jeff Birch was bending these wires up through here and bending them like once they go through, like bending them over like that, which that's a cool little trick. Once you get the wires up through there, you can bend them over, and it'll usually hold its spot like that. So now I'm going to come in with the solder. I need to clean my soldering tip. Make sure I don't have too much solder on that. I'm going to tin it a little bit here. And I'm going to come in here and try to peel this thing off. It didn't work. It didn't work. She didn't hold. Which now we're going to have a problem because now we got solder up in the hole. That's always a bitch when that happens. Of course, it's going to happen when we're live, right? So now I've got to bring in the damn helping hands to hold this board steady, because this is not going to be fun. Anybody that's had that happen, this basically sucks, because now you're having to, bring a wire in through. I'm going to try to find a better place to hold that board. Now we're having to bring a wire through a hole that has solder in it. Of course, you could use a solder sucker here to get that solder out of there. But what we can do, if I can make this happen, is I'm going to heat up the solder in the hole. And I'm going to try to find the hole on the back side, like that. And then I'm back up through the hole, and bada bing. So, even though I had a problem, I was able to work through it. Oh God, that's nerve-wracking. That's not how I wanted that to go. But now our data 2 is on there, and we get the helping hands out of the way. So now the next 2 wires are going to be our speaker wires, and I know our speaker wires are going to go in this hole, and this hole, and I know that's these blue wires right here. So our speaker wires, the Proffie is going to sit about yay there. So I know these speaker wires need to be cut about right there. And now I'm going to untwist our speaker wires. That stupid battery negative wire is killing me. Battery negative wire is killing me right there. I'm going to tape that sucker. I'm going to tape the 2 power wires out of the way because they're really bugging the crap out of me right now. That's the bad part about the octopus nightmare, when you're first installing a Saber, you got all your wires in, is that you have so many wires that it's like old Mother Hubbard, and it's a bit of a mess. But at any rate, it is what it is. So now I'm going to strip my speaker wires. Bam. And this is the bad part about twisting your wires. You're ready to get enough of them untwisted. That one doesn't want to stay out of the way of my strippers. So I'll come in here, strip off, not really much, and then twist them. Everybody's laughing. I'm trying to keep up with the chat. Every now and then I peek over at it to see what's going on. And bada bing, bada boom. Now, let's dip those in the beautiful flux. Make sure we got no strays coming off of there. And let's go ahead and tin these suckers. All right. Now, I'm going to turn this around because I don't like working from that side. And try to get this where you guys can see what I'm doing. But I'm going to bring the Proffie around, and I'm going to try and do the birch method on these, because the birch method actually was a huge tip. When I saw Jeff Birch doing that, I'm like, oh, you are a thing of genius. So you put the wire up through and bend it over the pad, and then you can release it from your forceps. Jeff Birch is a genius. That's the Birch method. So then, now that we have it sticking up through the pad, I'm going to come in here for the kill. Bam. Just like that. Now we're going to grab our other speaker wire and try to do the same thing through the next hole. Well, I do have a saber stand to work on them, but when the camera's here and I got the tripod here, it kind of makes it more difficult. So I actually have the saber on the tripod when I'm shooting these videos like this. Makes for a pain in the butt. Alright, so there's that speaker on. Now I'm going to trim that piece of wire because I don't want that piece of wire sticking out. I don't want that piece of wire sticking out. And we'll quickly reflow both of those. And we still got good connection, so we're good. Next is going to be my battery negative. And the battery negative is my white wire that I taped down here. And it's going to go through this hole here. This hole. That's where my battery negative is getting ready to go, right there. So I'm going to bring out my white wire. And when the Proffie's installed, she's going to be about right in there. So my white wire needs to be about yay long. All right. So now I'm going to pull that white wire out. This is our actual negative feed to the soundboard, and this does come directly from the battery. This is soldered directly to the battery negative terminal, and we did that, I think, on week 2 of these live videos on this saber. So basically, all these live videos for the last several weeks are just installing this saber. So now I'm going to tin this thing. That wire's tinned. And I don't have a battery in the saber. I don't have a battery in the saber. So now I'm going to bring in my forceps. And the board's already starting to want to be in its spot. So the more wires you get on, the more solid the board is. So now I have my, trying to get y'all where you can see. Ugh. Where the focus on that camera is really crappy. Trying to get y'all positioned better so you can see this solder. So the wire sticking up right there out of that hole. I know the camera's out of focus. I'm sitting here looking at it because it's in front of me. I'm going to go ahead and solder this battery negative in here. Ooh. It's a good solder, but I don't know if it got the pad fully. And I'm still seeing pad. Oh, that's good. It's a good solid connection. So now I'm going to trim off this spare wire that's sticking up out of there. And then I'm going to reflow that. I sucked all the solder out of there. Well, that one's going to be difficult, isn't it? So I'm going to cure that with some flux. These Proffie 1.5s can be difficult with the pads. They don't like to take solder. Whoops, she took solder that time, boys. Look at there. So the battery negative is now on. I can release my hemostats. Now, the next one in line because I'm working our way around the board. So I'm working, you know, I work data, speakers, battery negative, and my next is my Neopixel negative for our main blade, which is going to be this black wire. And I know I left my auxiliary switch out, but I always go back and grab the switches last. So, and plus I got to look at the diagram on the internet, so y'all can all come along with me for that ride. So now I want to join this one, and I'm probably going to join it on the bottom. You guys aren't going to like how I do this, but it works. So I'm going to straighten out this wire. Proffie's going to be installed about right there. It's going to leave about yay much. And I'm actually going to solder this one on the bottom side of the board on the actual on the bridges we put on earlier. And this is just how I do this again. I don't know that it's right or wrong. It's just the way I do them. It works out good for me. I've never had one of these break loose. And then I'm going to pre-tin this sucker. If I can get everything to cooperate. Now we're off camera. Of course, you're going to keep rolling, right? All right, so the wire we're pre-tinning is right here in my forceps. And we're going to pre-tin this. And I'm going to tell you guys might not be able to see this going to the FETs at all because it's kind of precarious how I have to do this. It's all going to be like upside down and inverted. And I might have to get this damn camera up out of the way. So y'all just hold tight. I know you're going to get seasick now, but I need some space. Ugh. And I need some light. Okay. I don't know if y'all are going to be able to see this or not, but we are going to solder right to that bridge on the FET. This 22 gauge wire, I'm going to solder it right on that FET bridge. Right there, just like that. And I'll try and show that to you here. Let me trim the excess. And I'll try and show that on the camera. Let me lower the camera a little bit again, because now we're through with that precariousness. I can kind of get the camera back in closer. So, I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but it's on the FET. I know that looks crazy right there. But I'll check that for continuity. The black wire is coming here, right into the double resistor tail that we put in there. And it's free and clear of the negative joint. So we're good there. Next is my main positive line. So that's another one that we taped out of the way here. The funny thing is, you know, the further we go, the fewer wires we have to deal with, and pretty much all I have left are the positive wires and the switch wires. So our positive wire, remember, it's going to be installed. So where do I cut this thing at? I'm going to say we're going to cut it about right there. And let's bring in my needle nose. And we're going to strip this positive wire. And then after I strip this positive wire, I know my, this is 26 gauge. I forgot what gauge we used. 26. After I do my positive wire, I think we're going to go look at the diagram and make sure that we have, that I know where all the switch wires go. I know where the main switch lead goes. It's the middle pad of the 3 after the positive, but I can't remember where the auxiliary switch and the ground go on a Proffie 1.5 because it's been It's been a while since I've done a Proffie 1.5, so at any rate, I'm going to stick that positive wire up through that positive hole and do the birch method. Bend her over. And there we go. She's there. Now let's come in for the kill on that. You know, the funny thing is like I actually talk to myself when I'm wiring sabers anyway. It's like all the stuff that I'm telling you guys tonight, pretty much is I talk to myself while I'm wiring sabers. Ugh, that's ugly. We're gonna have to clean that up because that's ugly looking because there's too much wire. So what we're gonna do is trim that wire, and we're gonna come here and reflow that and make sure I don't have anything. Oh no, that's pretty. I'll show you that one. Of course, it's not focusing, but it's pretty. Next, switch wires. So I'm untaping our 3 remaining wires. So we have 3 remaining wires. Green is my main switch, and white is ground for both switches, and yellow is going to be my auxiliary switch. So I know that my main switch goes right about there. I try and go back and read all the comments, you know, a couple days later or whatever to make sure that I've covered everything. And somebody asked on the last one, and I can't remember who it was, why I had 2 blade styles on the connector that I used. And the reason is because I'm actually running them independent, and hopefully I'll be able to show you why here in a little bit. Because I know we're getting close to an hour, but hopefully we can turn on the saber tonight is what I'm hoping. So this one may be a little long tonight because it was, you know, an install video. Let's tin this wire away from the soundboard. This is my main switch lead. So now I'm going to grab my hemostats, and I know my main switch lead. Get it away from that white wire. I know my main switch lead goes in this middle one, and I'm going to bend it over, Jeff Birch style. Try to set it up on here. And I'm going to come in with a solder. I'm sorry this camera isn't focusing. I don't know what the hell the problem is with the focus on this camera. That's pretty good. I like that. Now, because I don't remember, I know one of these is ground. I don't remember which one. And I know one of these over here is where my aux switch goes. So let's go look that up. So I'm going to go to Windows Share. And let's go on the Proffie board website. And we're going to find out. Proffie board. They're definitely available for sale now. Did y'all see all them links? Okay, so my ground is the second big pad in. Oh, let's go back to Sharon here. And let's go back to the scene. All right, so my ground is this second one in here, which I just looked at up. So I know that's where our white wire needs to go. Let me confirm that. Y'all won't be seeing me confirm that, but I'm confirming it. That's correct. Second one in. Second one in. So I'm going to grab our white wire here, and it goes to this second one. The board's going to be installed behind there. So if I cut that wire about right there, we should be okay. And then I'm going to strip it. long enough that I can do the Birch method. And I'm going to twist it. And I'm going to dip it. I should have just hung on to it. And I'm going to find my solder. I got stuff laying all over now. I'll have to clean some of this up here in a second. And I'm going to tin it. And now I want to go up through the second hole, just like that, bend it over. Jeff Birch method. And hopefully y'all are seeing that. Oop, I got insulation sticking up through the hole. That's not good. So these little bitty wires are a pain. This is 30 gauge because it's switch wires. And I'm going to pull that out ever so slightly. And I think that's good. And now we're going to hit that with solder. Oh, don't move on me. That's ugly. That was an ugly solder. Too much solder. And I don't like how close it is to that other hole. Let's clean our solder in there and see if we can come in there and force that to be cleaned up a little bit. Well, I guess we're going to find out in a little bit. Now, let's go see, let's go back to the Proffie board page. And my button 2 is 1, 2, 3 down from speaker. So let's go back to y'all and back to the camera. So my button 2 is going to be 3 down from the speaker. So I'm going to move the saber down here so I can work, and I'm going to switch sides. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3 down from the speaker. You can see the board kind of sits where it's going to want to right now because of the way we've cut the wires. We cut the wires all to the approximate length where the board's going to sit, so it's almost naturally wanting to go home. Go home. It wants to go home. And I'm going to strip enough of that auxiliary switch wire to go up through the hole. I'm going to butter that up with some flux. And I'm going to tin this away from the board. And there we're tinned. And now we're going to take this one and put it up through the third hole. I'll confirm that in just a second. I'm pretty sure that's right. I got a little bit too much solder on the tip. It doesn't want to go through the hole. We'll fix that. Third hole, bend it over. Jeff Birch method. It's a beautiful trick, Jeff. You're a genius. You're a genius for doing that. Let's clean this soldering iron off. Try to make this last solder a clean one, huh? Oh man, she flowed beautiful. That was a pretty solder joint. Release that. I'm going to trim that little excess wire. And basically, we're installed. So now, let's get all these wires out here that I cut that fell in my battery compartment. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I guess I can put my SD card in now, right? Actually, before we put the SD card in, let's go ahead and clean up again. So I'm going to, so we're installed, and then everybody's like, put a battery in, fire that sucker up. Well, we're going to, patience. Let's clean all the fluxers off the board. Clean all the flux off, especially around data. Cleaning all the flux off of the data and everything, and all the other pads. All right, so now all the flux is cleaned off. Now I'm going to take some hobby tape, and we're going to put the board home. Once I cut a piece of hobby tape here, which, is doing the typical tape thing where I can't find the end of it. Hey, Maker Channel. It's a disaster. Everybody's tuning in to see, is this thing going to blow up when he fires it up? What will happen next at Megtooth Sabers? Will he put the battery in there and the thing catches on fire? Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Will the config that he wrote last week on the live stream not work? Hopefully everything will work. So I'm going to go ahead and put my board in position, and I'm going to taper down so we can slide this chassis home. This is a rough job. I'll go back and clean all this up later. I just don't want the board shorting out on the hill. So there we go. Not a very good taping job, Tom. Let's try that again. Number one, we got to be in the slot. There. So now we're taped in. Now the buttons, we got to send them home, and hopefully we have reaction on them. Feels like we do there. Feels like we do there. Oh boy. Now, the moment everybody has been waiting for. We're going to put a battery in this sucker. Please pray we get a boot sound or something. Battery didn't want to sit down in there. And it already said font directory not sound, so that's not good. I don't know what's going on there.
Font directory not found. SD card not found.
How was that? Oh, I didn't put the SD card in it. There's the SD card. You guys didn't see me not put the SD card in it? Let's take the battery out. You guys were supposed to bail me out there. I didn't even put the SD card in it. So let's untape it. Dang it. Yeah. SD card's in it now, guys. Dum da dum dum dum. Caught live, doing dumb stuff. Next on Megtooth Sabers. Doing dumb stuff live for everyone. Alright. Let's try this again. See, I'm going to have to get those wires cleaned up in that hole down there. I don't like that.
This mission's everything we cannot fail.
Ooh. We've got action. So let's see if the bottom fits on. Oh, I put gesture addition on. Well, I'm going to have to increase the flash sensitivity. We can see that right off the bat. Let's see if when I put the hilt on, it doesn't fix it. So I'm going to have to increase the clash sensitivity a lot. I'm getting speaker-induced clashes. I think I should do that right now so we can wheel this saber around and not having to do crazy stuff. Actually, it's not. It seems like it's behaving now. My stock pixels work. Okay, seems like it's okay. So stand by. Let's switch views. Oh boy. We're going to really see what we got going on here now. Put you guys over here, I guess. Oh boy. Hey, check out them Crocs. Look at that. Isn't that crazy? All right, moment of truth here. Throw a blade in here. Uh-oh. Fail. Now the Neopixel, the stuff is working there. So my guess is I've lost continuity on data 1, which might be because I spliced it. So the saber's working. Definitely need to increase the flash sensitivity. Oh, I'm not getting. Yeah, data 1's not going. So, obviously on the main blade data, I've got issues. That really sucks. But the Proffie connector works. So, let's go to the next one.
Skywalker.
Looks like I've got some corruption in there too. That's supposed to be yellow. That's supposed to be a fire blade. Well, I'm going to have to diagnose that. So let's pull you guys in and get back into chat. That really stinks. So, already know what next Monday is going to be. Next Monday is going to be, let's diagnose what's wrong with this saber. Battery meter's working. Let's see if the tune on battery meter works. The battery meter works, which is why I did the independent blade so the battery meter shows up in the pixel connector. So that all works except for my main data. Yeah, so getting back to the chat, we're not going to stay on too much longer tonight because that's pretty long, but I mean, that's really the truth of it. I mean, you install a saber and you can see it 90% works. Why doesn't the blade ignite? My guess is something I had to do tonight in preparation for the video. If you remember last week, I got the purple data line, which creates the main blade. And tonight it was too short. So before we began the video, I patched in another piece of data line onto that. And my figure is I figure I've lost continuity on that, or I've lost a solder on the pixel connector. Something something went wrong, but I'll figure out what it is and fix it. And, you know, I'm going to try and fix it because, you know, that's going to drive me crazy to not fix it. The saber's almost up and running. But, you know, you got to see how it goes tonight. I mean, in all honesty, every time I install a saber, there's some hiccup or another that you have to deal with, and you have to be able to diagnose it. You can see what a mess my workbench is after tonight, you know, after we did a saber install. But the bottom line is what I'll do is, you know, I'll whip out the handy dandy multimeter, which everybody should be using, and, you know, we'll diagnose continuity on that data line. And, you know, maybe if that data line's corrupt, I'll try another data line. If all that fails, then I'm going to pull the Neopixel connector out and see if I lost a solder on the Neopixel connector. So it is what it is. Sometimes that happens. So the saber, everything works but the main blade. And obviously I've got to increase the clash sensitivity because every time I turned it off, just the retraction sound would turn the saber back on. So it's getting this saber's equipped with motion, so it's getting a stab ignition on it, and I just need to turn up the sensitivity on it. But, you know, pretty awesome irregardless. You know, awesome install. We'll fix it, and then hopefully next week I can demo it. And then I think what I'm going to do next week is I'll tell y'all what I had to do to fix the saber and what was wrong with it. But I'm telling you, it's data. It's the main data is the problem, and I'll fix it. And when I find out what it was, I'll let you know. Yeah, I'm guessing that splice that I put in broke or was a bad piece of wire. I should have checked continuity on it when I soldered it in, but you know, I mean, that's the cool part about live videos is you get the truth, and the truth isn't that all these guys, everything they do is perfection, and you know, you're going to have little glitches, and you have to figure out your glitches. You know, you have to be confident enough to not get so frustrated. I mean, right now, you know, some people might want to throw that thing out the window. I mean, we've been working on this saber for the last 5 Megtooth Mondays, so you know, there's at least 5 or 6 hours worth of work we put into the saber, and now it doesn't work. I mean, that could lead somebody to throw a full-on temper tantrum. But you just got to keep your head about yourself, and you know, we'll get it working, and you'll get yours working too. So don't get frustrated when you have something like that happen. Go in and figure it out. I mean, to me, that's the fun part of saber building is, okay, well, this isn't working. Why is that? And then diagnosing it, and then fixing it. And then once it's fixed and it's cool and it all works like it's supposed to, you're like, yay! And but everything else works on it. The config that we built last week works. The Neopixel connector works except for the main blade because I've got data 1 lost for some reason. And you know, it is the way it is. It's not just you, Mike. Every one of us has these same struggles. I don't know. I think the difference between installers that are humble and truthful is that sometimes it just doesn't work out. But it did work out. The saber's working. I have to adjust the config, the clash sensitivity, and I got to find out why the main data isn't working. And that's going to be as simple. It's going to be a cut wire or a solder joint that broke in the Neopixel connector. It's something simple. And all I have to do is figure it out. Or it could be a corrupt data pad on the Proffie 1.5. And if that's the case, then I'll just reassign it to a different data pad, and we'll be just fine. Yeah, it is Murphy's Law, isn't it? But at any rate, we'll get her going. We'll get her going. And it'll be solid, and it's going to be awesome. But at any rate, anybody got any questions before we turn this off and I go to tear apart the saber and diagnose what's wrong with it? My guess is I've lost continuity. Matter of fact, while y'all are here, let's go and check. Because it's a simple matter with a multimeter. I can tell you if we've lost continuity or not. So let's go ahead and check. So I'm going to take the battery out, and my data 1 is going to be right there. And then, of course, I know my center pin is data 1 on the Neopixel connector. So I'm going to check for continuity between the two. And this will be the telltale of whether I've lost the wire there or what. Ooh, I have continuity on data 1. That means I could have a corrupt data pad. So probably what I'm going to do is change the config and go to data 3 on that one and see if I can get that working. And I may do that tonight. But I do know that my data wire it still has continuity through there. I know everything works except for the main pixel blade, and the Neopixel connector was kind of doing some screwy stuff. So, well, it is coding partially, but I think partially I could have a burnt data 1 pad. I mean, that's not that uncommon. If y'all remember when I was soldering that data wire on, I was having to lay on that pad quite a bit. And I might have overheated it, might have killed that pad. But the cool thing about Proffie is you got other data pads, and I'll go to another data pad and we'll make it work. But at any rate, I think I'm going to pretty much call that a night and get the diagnosis on what's wrong with this saber. But hopefully you guys enjoyed that. We built this saber on Megtooth Monday Live for the last, this is the 5th week that we've done install videos on this saber. And if you haven't seen those videos, go back and watch pretty much the whole month of October and half of September's videos, and you can see the whole install process on this saber. And you know, it's another install tutorial that's out there. But anyway, it stinks. I'm in a bad mood now. But what drives me is trying to figure out what I did wrong, what I messed up, and how can I fix it. And I will figure this out. We'll yeah, we did. But we'll fix this saber not on Megtooth Monday Live. But I thank you guys for coming along on the ride, and I'll try to read your comments at the end of the video once it publishes, and next week hopefully we'll be demoing this thing and I'll have a smile on my face. And if this saber works out and I can demo it next week, then I think I want to do a video without building sabers maybe, and just show some of what I've got coming, and maybe talk some Star Wars. I've got a graphics build in progress right now, so it's going to be cool. But and we built this thing together, standing strong together. I'm not a singer. But at any rate, may the force be with you guys, and have fun on your saber builds. Don't get frustrated when things don't go right, because as you can see, sometimes things just don't go right. But we're going to make this happen. I'm going to go in and change the config of the saber. I think I'm going to swap to data 3, and we'll see if we can get this thing working. But I will let y'all know how I fix it next Monday, and hopefully demo this thing. We're almost there, 90% of the way home. I'm going to adjust the clash sensitivity while I'm at it. Dominic, cool, doing your first Proffie? Oh yeah. Well, the cool part is, Jeff, is I can build a saber that I need to build while we're doing these videos, but it is a pain in the butt having the cameras around while you're building. But, even though it wasn't a total success tonight, I think it was about a 90% success. I can guarantee you that I'll have that saber running before I go to bed tonight. So yeah, may the force be with you guys, and good luck in your saber building. And, we'll see you next week. And hopefully we'll be demoing this saber next week. So thanks for tuning in every Monday. You need a resistor for the Neopixel for a crystal chamber. Yeah, you should put a resistor in that line unless you're running it off data 1 on Proffie 2 max. You still need a 470 ohm. You can even use a 330 ohm as long as you've got some sort of resistance to stabilize that data signal. But yeah, it's wise to do that. But oh yeah, you know, most of the time my sabers work the first time out of the door. I do think I burnt that data 1 pad tonight. That was probably self-imposed. But at any rate, it's an easy fix for me. It should take about 10 minutes for me to reprogram the config and change data pad, and it is. It'll be just fine. But yeah, we all have struggles. Nobody's perfect, especially not me. And I'll see you guys next week. I'll keep you all in my thoughts and prayers, and thank you for tuning in every Monday, as always. And we will see you guys next Monday, same bat time, same bat channel. Thanks for tuning in.
As usual, I really appreciate y'all tuning in on my channel. And as always,